Hello and welcome back to the Impression Wiz channel. I'm your host, the Impression Wiz, and today I thought I'd kind of explain my thought processes when I come up with headcanon voices for certain characters. I know I've talked about how to develop the voices and whatnot in a certain way, but where they come from or how I kind of come up with the first ideas of the voice, I don't think I really did. If I did, I'm sorry if I'm rehashing some things, but I'm sure there's a couple of other things in this now that I haven't shared before. But I thought I'd share with you guys my processes anyway with some of these. Usually with headcanon voices that I do, the very first thing before I hear anything is I look at how they look and how they interact and whatnot, and use what is written in the story or written in the comic or whatever, wherever. Any dialogue if they have any. If they don't have any dialogue, then kind of what I would think they would say or how they would act. I try to get stuff from that first. The best example, I guess, is some of the panels of Karkat from Homestuck is probably the best. All the angry things that he does. That's where a lot of people get his anger for any voice that they do for him, even myself. But then that's kind of like a basis of certain personality parts of him. But then you read more and more and get to know the character, kind of get into their mindset and learn every little bit about them. And if you have the luck of, and here I'm dipping into something I've probably said in the past, if you get a chance to hear other people's interpretation, it might help you create your own interpretation of what they would sound like for a voice. Like a lot of people with Karkat, give him a higher voice and a shouty voice. Always loud. But you can always put a little tweak on that depending on certain things and to how you like it or how I like it in certain ways. You know what I mean? And you twist it to fit you, but also fit the character, if that makes sense. Another good example of a kind of a combination of those two is probably Sans. There's a lot of different interpretations of Sans, but my interpretation kind of takes some fan stuff of comics and whatnot, but also the canon of him being kind of lazy and tired a lot of the time and not really caring about a whole lot. You know, it's just, there you go. And the big one that I'm going to do now, Papyrus, a lot of people have the same interpretation, but they're all still slightly different. The best example I can start saying there is my biggest influence was Jack. But the longer I've done Papyrus and the more I've done him and practiced him, I have turned him into my own thing. Although I still get people saying, hey, you sound like Jacksepticeye. When really I'm not trying to sound like Jacksepticeye. I'm trying to do just Papyrus. It is kind of based off of his voice, but how I portray the characters slightly different, if that makes sense. And it's all based on how the personality seems to be up here. And you can kind of tweak them in certain ways, but they're kind of stuck to how you see the character for headcanon voices. That's why I do like doing a lot of different voices for some of these characters that don't have voices. Because there's so many different unique interpretations of them. Like, you might like my interpretation of Gamzee Makara or Sans. I mean, Papyrus, but you know what I mean. But there's other interpretations that are equally right. There's no true canon voice for these characters, so all of them are canon, and yet none of them are canon. So they're all equally valid. And in a way, you could kind of see it similar to those that cosplay, but with their voice. That's kind of how I like to see it. And messing with my voice is a lot of fun. That's why I like to do it. And that's why I like to do a lot of the characters that don't have a headcanon voice or have a canon voice, so I can put my little interpretation to it. But that's kind of my thoughts on how I start my own like headcanon idea for voices, and then it kind of develops into probably the video I did, which is how like to actually develop them more and practice them and whatnot. Basically, the whole thing of headcanon voices is that it's what you think that they should sound like. And I hope this gives you just some inspiration to maybe put a voice to one of your favorite characters if you want to. If you don't want to, far be it from me to tell you you have to do something. But if you want to do a voice for a certain character, and if it's completely different from what I would think of it or anyone else would think of, that's totally fine, because it's your headcanon voice for that character. No one can change that. Your voice for that character might shift and whatnot over time, but it'll still be your voice for him or her. But just I hope you liked this video of kind of just headcanon. If you liked it, please put a like on the video, and if you want to see more of my content, please subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss anything that I upload. And as always, I will see you Wednesday.